back, everybody. Mudford here. I'm just getting ready to do some front end work on my 1996 Polaris Sportsman 400 4x4. These are kind of a unique four-wheel drive system from what I've seen. It has an electric button up on the handlebar. Like you can see the wires coming off of it. It sounds like when you push that button, it engages a coil or some kind of magnetic thing in that hub. It's going to make the hub lock in. So mine aren't working very good. Mine pops in and out of four-wheel drive randomly when I'm snow plowing and all that, which is not a lot of fun to be pushing a bunch of snow and then pop back into two-wheel drive. So we're going to take this whole thing apart and look at it. And I also need to replace one of the axle shafts because one of the boots has been ripped for a long time and I never got around to fixing it. So I've got a little bit of work. It looks like it's a 14 millimeter to get the wheel off. Looks like we got 3 Torx bits on the bottom of this shield here that protects the axle. I'm going to go ahead and get that off and then I can show you my bad CV joint. Okay, here's my CV on the front left side. You can see the boot is gone. That's part of the constant velocity joint in there. It's completely shot. So we need to get this out. We also want to have a look at these hubs and see how they work. So we're going to go ahead and start tearing into it. The 2 bolts out that hold the caliper on to the knuckle. They're right over, right there, and right there. Right there. I used a 13 millimeter. It fit kind of loose on them, but they came off. And I just put the bolts back in so I didn't get them mixed up or lose them. And then hung the caliper up out of the way for now. And I put the bolts back in here on the guard too, just so I wouldn't lose them. Okay, I got the cover off. We have a snap ring here on the end of the shaft. And it looks like a nut that's holding a bearing onto there. And I think this is supposed to be oil in here. That could be a lot of my problem. I think you're supposed to tip this up, take this screw out and put oil in. And I don't really think I have much in there. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off. And we'll have a look-see. Looks like I don't have small enough of a set of snap ring pliers, so we'll see if I can shoot this across the garage here. I think I've thoroughly just... Looks like 1.25 inches fits on there. Give her a shot. This left-handed threads. Yeah, it appears to be left-handed threads on this side. Yeah, I'm guessing this was part of my problem here. Probably a good time to get this cleaned out. She's a little bit dried up and grimy in there. Not what you want. And the bearing doesn't look very good either. Probably going to have to get new bearings. So we'll go ahead and finish taking this apart and get this axle shaft out. Because I know there's 2 different kinds and I need to make sure which one I have before I order it. Okay, I took the nut off the bottom, the ball joint here. And then I had to do some tapping and prying. Tapped on this real hard while I was prying down. Pops that lower control arm right down. You can get the axle loose out of here. And let me see if I can shine the light in there and show you how bad mine is. It's just grime in there. Dirt, mud, it looks like. Looks like I'm going to be replacing all the bearings. Clean this unit up, the locking hub, replace every bearing in the shaft, and it should be good. Okay, I originally thought that this was a bolt. It's a roll pin that holds the drive shaft in. Got it most of the way out now, but I'm hitting the lip over on this side with my punch, and it's knocking my punch over at an angle. My punch is getting stuck, but I think I'm still going to try that again because I can't get it to turn. I thought it was almost out, that I'd be able to get these pliers on it and wiggle it loose. A little better. Got it. Where your axle shaft identifying marks are. I believe that's a part number. We'll have to look it up. I know if it says USA, it's one kind, or I think it says BTB or something like that is the other kind. So this should tell me which kind it is. So this part of the axle shaft would stick through the knuckle like this. This would be right up against the inside part there. That's where the numbers are. So I pulled the cap off of this hub to get to the jam nut here on the end of the axle shaft to take the hub off. And this one actually had fluid in it. A bunch of it spilled out on the floor, but I was pretty shocked by that because the other side had nothing but like mud in it, is what it looked like. Dried up mud. So I don't think I'm even going to tear this down. I don't see the point when it still had the fluid in it. So I'm pretty sure the bearings must be alright. Slap that back on and more F transmission fluid. It says, and just go ahead and do that and call this side good. Need to replace all the bearings on the left side here. So I'm just going in here now with a punch and driving the outer bearing rings out. We got our parts. We got the complete axle shaft. We got the axle shaft from Sixity.com. They got it here quick, and it was the right one. And it was quite affordable too. Got 2 bearing and seal kits. One is for the, let me see. One is a front wheel bearing kit, and it has this outer seals, inner seal, and 2 bearings. And then this kit is called the front strut bearing and seal kit. The bearings are the same. There's 2 more of them. Unfortunately, there's 4 bearings in this front end, and then it has the other seals for sealing that part. Okay, that's as good as I'm going to clean it right there. It looks pretty good. I used brake parts cleaner, a toothbrush, and then some paper towels, and got everything that's loose out. And now I'm going to go ahead and install the bearing races. Here's my axle shaft here. It's important to note you have a strut bearing and a wheel bearing, and they look quite similar. You can probably see the differences. The strut bearing is a little bit bigger diameter inside, and it will fit all the way up on like this. Your wheel bearing is only going to fit, it fits real tight on here, and it's going to bottom out right there. So it's important when you're installing the strut bearings you get the right one. If you put the wheel bearing in there, you'll never be able to get the axle shaft on. to do it. You want to make sure there's no space between the bearing race and the lip. We're going to do the exact same thing from the other side. Okay, what I did now is I got the inner race drove in. It was really hard to do. A lot harder than the front. You had to get right in here with a punch and get it in exactly the right spot. But it is all the way in now. I'm going to clean it all up again with brake parts cleaner real quick, just to get all the stuff that I knocked loose while I was driving the races in. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the seal in. Okay, I'll just show you real quick how to properly pack a bearing. A lot of people don't know now. It used to be pretty common knowledge when cars used to need repacking of the wheel bearings regularly. Now they're almost all sealed. You want to get a glob of grease on your hand and then work the bearing down on the grease like that until you can see the grease come out the other end of the bearing, and then you know you've got grease through it, and you just got to keep turning it and go all the way around. It's important that you have grease all throughout your bearings before you start it, otherwise they will burn up and they won't last. Okay, there, I think I got this one. Okay, I started the shaft through the strut, then I put the splines back in, drove the pin back through, and I greased my outer bearing and slid it on. So now what I need to do next is get the hub ready to go on. The wheel bearings are out here, and they do not take grease. The whole hub is going to be full of, or partially full of, Type F transmission fluid, or whatever Polaris calls it. Type F works fine, and it's a lot more common and cheap. So we have to clean up our hub and replace the races and seal in there, and then get it on and get it tightened down. Okay, I cleaned out the housing with brake parts cleaner and got everything out I could, and drove the new bearing races in, the outer races, and then I put the seal back in and bolted the rotor back on. I don't know if you can see, I scuffed up the rotor. Something I always do. Rotors tend to get glazed over and grooved up, so it's kind of nice to scuff them up with a cleaning wheel when you have them out. And I want to say too, make sure you don't damage the inner seal when you put it in. It's really easy to do. You don't want to be leaking the transmission fluid out. It's right on there, but I gotta put some other parts on here first. I'm going to coat them all with transmission fluid before I put it together. Okay, I dipped the bearings in the automatic transmission fluid. I put the inner one down in. And I've got the hub assembly. I did the same thing with it. I put it down in. Same with the sprag. Gonna make sure I get the tabs lined up here. There we go. And then slip it on. There we go. Okay, I dipped the outer wheel bearing in the transmission fluid. Got it in place. A new spacer and nut that came with this. We have to tighten this down. I gotta check the spec. Okay, I got a new nut on this, and it's not the torque flex nut like Polaris originally had on, and I couldn't find for sure what the spec was supposed to be. So what I did is I just tightened it up tight and kept trying to spin it, and then it got hard to spin, and then I backed it off some, and then what I did was I just made it so it felt just about like the other side as far as how easy it turned. So it should be alright. Now the way you're supposed to fill this hub up is you're supposed to fill it up with it at like 4 o'clock or 8 o'clock. So I'm going to pour some in, and I've heard people say 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock. So that's what we're going to do is I'm going to pour some in, put the cap in, spin it a few times, and then pull the cap out and see how we're doing. Oh. Okay, got it about at 3 o'clock, or actually 9 o'clock, and we'll see how we do. Okay, there we go. Starting to dribble out. Let it go until it stops, and we'll have this side, this hub all done. Throw the brakes on, the wheel back on, and we'll be back in business. Okay, we're all back together now, ready to take it off the jack stands and take it for a spin. It'll be kind of loud because I have the quad running, but I need the quad running to show you. Got the back end jacked up now, the front end still on jack stands, and I have it in 2-wheel drive. The button is not pushed. See, both back wheels are spinning, and no front wheels are spinning. Go ahead and push the button. Front hub engaged. And the other hub engaged. A success.